In the beginning of 2021, my friends and I noticed that we were beating one game each day out of pure coincidence. Did we decide to laugh about it and let it go? No, of course not. We made that streak 50 days long. Afterwards, the pressure of someone completing a game each day kinda got to us. So instead, we decided to keep a list of games that we all beat every month. This provided me with a great opportunity, as for the first time, I had a coherent list of every game I beat in a year. There's actually a decent amount. It's kinda concerning. So I figured it'd be fun to talk about all of them. While I'm not going to speak about or show major spoilers, if you want to go completely blind into a certain game, I have put the timestamps to each game in the description if you want to skip to certain parts. Also, everything here is my opinion. It's said way too much on the internet, but it's still something that should be said. So, here we go. This is every game I beat in 2021. Somehow in chronological order. And what a way to start the year. Just wow. That really sums up my thoughts on Nier. On to the next game. Nah, I'm joking. But really, I get the hype. Out of recommendation from a few friends, I decided to ask for this game for Christmas and almost immediately started it the next day. In the time it took me to complete the game, I discovered a rich world with a compelling cast of characters. The music is also incredible, producing some super immersive tracks. I have to give a special nod to the voice acting, especially the voice of 9S, Katamari. Bravo. Although, this game is super heavy in both really depressing topics and a lot of blood. It gets a lot more twisted as the game goes on, and while it's sprinkled in from the start, some of the stuff in the final hours of the game is super gross, even for me. While the replay value is also somewhat questionable, besides grabbing joke endings, I recommend people blindly experience this game at least once. It's something I'm not going back to for a few years, but it's a game I'm glad I played. Honestly, I didn't expect this game to be as good as it was. Maybe it was due to not having played the original title since 2016? Maybe it was because the last Warrior game I played was the Fire Emblem one, which was alright. My expectations were lower than they should have been for Age of Calamity, so I was pleasantly surprised with this one. This game manages to blend Breath of the Wild's world, characters, and even its weapon system with the format of Warriors really well. Seeing all of the Breath of the Wild characters in a new light and getting to play as them was super fun. Honestly, it's this game that gives me hope for the new Fire Emblem Warriors game based on Three Houses. I'm really hoping to go in a similar direction, because the way that they did this made it a quality Warriors game. Also, Terrico Best Boy. You cannot change my mind. Good old Ace Attorney. As a birthday present, I was able to grab the Ace Attorney trilogy to play through. I had played and completed the first game on the DS way back in the day, and always wanted to give the other games a shot. But first, it was time to revisit where it all began. While the remastered style is very different from the sprite-based one I grew to love, everyone in this game looks fresh as hell, from Wright and Edgeworth to some of the more minor characters. The game's charm is definitely still preserved within these remasters. Even the stuff that was designed for the DS, specifically the features in Case 5, still work alright on a non-handheld system. The soundtrack's still the same, the story is still fantastic, and I'm excited to see something new from Mr. Wright in the next game. This was a game I really enjoyed when I first got it for Wii U, but when the re-release was announced, I wasn't entirely interested. But due to certain features like online play and never fully completing the game when it came out, I decided to pick it up again. With a few friends, we ended up beating the game together, and 3 of us even went on to beat Champions Road, which was a hell of a time. My opinion of the game is the same one I had when I first played it. It's super solid and a fantastic 3D Mario. Even if it makes me want to throw my friends off of a cliff. Multiple times. Yakuza 0 has definitely been a game I've been aware of for many years. If I had to guess, the fact that 2 of my other friends started up the game earlier in the year was what made me finally pick up and play it. And wow, I've been missing out. This game is one of the best 2 protagonist stories I've seen in the media. As the player, you control both 20-year-old Yakuza upstart Kazuma Kiryu and 24-year-old Lord of the Night, Goro Majima. Both characters play differently, and yet their styles of play are similar enough to where switching between the 2 is seamless. The story is told so cleverly from both the characters' point of views, and the player is thrown so many different bones, it's hard to tell what's right until the very end. Not to mention that the OST for this game is probably one of my favorites I've heard this year, with banger after banger. It was so hard to pick a background track for this segment. Overall, definitely a major favorite game I played this year, and a great introduction to the Yakuza series. But the question is, do I keep playing the series, or leave it off here? A classic. Super Mario 64 is one of those massively beloved games, I feel. I never see a bad mark on the game, even though it's approaching 25 years in age. It's a cult classic for both Mario and 3D platformers in general. The levels, the music, everything about it reeks in nostalgia. That's why it's weird to say I didn't enjoy this adventure through the Mushroom Kingdom as much as others. Maybe it's the fact I grew up with more solid game physics, but the game just feels so jank at times. While getting 70 stars is pretty easy, 100%ing the game is not. Especially in the later levels, which makes sense, but it gets incredibly frustrating at times. It was these mechanics that caused me to abandon my mission of going for 120 stars, despite being only less than 20 stars away. It also probably didn't help that I came to this game right off of playing Galaxy, and that the most exposure I had prior to this was playing Super Mario 64 DS, where the mechanics are way better in my opinion, even though the camera is the thing that's jank in DS. Either way, this is a fine game if you wanted to get, say, 70 stars or even speedrun it, but 100%? No thanks. Even though I was terrible at it as a kid, I loved Rhythm Heaven for the DS. Fan Club and Young Love Rock and Roll were 2 classic songs for the OST that always got stuck in my head. I actually got to the credits a few years ago, which theme slaps by the way, but I never had the skill to get to Remix 10. Thankfully, I had brought my DSi and the game with me to college, so I took an afternoon where I wasn't busy and grinded it out. It was pretty hard, even with many more years of experience and rhythm skill under my belt. I actually didn't know at the time, but the grade system in DS is apparently really harsh. How I got past some of those levels as a kid, and even getting perfects on some, I will never know. I guess 9-year-old me was on a different level. I'm happy that I got to revisit this classic from my childhood. The second in the collection of 3D All-Stars. I actually had the original Sunshine when I was around 11 or 12, but never got far with it due to me not being as skilled as I am now. But I had a soft spot for the game due to a certain YouTuber, so I was excited to play it. Going to this from Mario 64 was such a blessing. The controls were tighter than ever. Every input was responsive and easy to perform. So snappy that I could straight up defy death sometimes. I only completed this game with 70 shines, but I do want to go back and get the remaining shines and all the blue coins in the future. Somehow, the most infamous Sunshine levels were pretty easy for me, actually. Pachinko still took a while, but I beat it on my second or third try. Chuckster! I don't want to talk about that, but the lip pad I completed on my second try as well. It was odd to hear people complain time and time again about these levels, but I really didn't have much trouble with them myself. Still a fun game though. Ladies and gentlemen, the other reason I got the Switch release of 3D World. Bowser's Fury is a super solid game and meshes the openness of Odyssey with 3D World's mechanics exceptionally well. Mario controlled beautifully here, and all of his powers felt useful, not just the cat suit. I can see Lake Lapcat, that's really fucking hard to say, becoming both a classic starting area and a classic modern Mario theme with just the vibe it gives off. Not to mention the core game is still super fun. It takes more of an Odyssey approach with the different cat shines, but the game incentivizes traveling to the different sections of the map and not trying to grind out one specific area, which was quite refreshing. As an attachment to an already super fun Mario game, Bowser's Fury did not disappoint in the slightest. Monster Hunter is another one of those franchises I've been aware of for a while, but never had drive to play. I knew it was a fun cooperative series, but I didn't really have friends that would have jumped blindly into new game series like that. So my curiosity was just simply curiosity. Lo and behold, two friends who were interested in Rise, as both of them had played Monster Hunter in the past. Yeah, one of them is British, but wait, why are you talking about Switch Online? Oh wait. In all seriousness, Monster Hunter Rise gets the trophy for the best online connection I had this year. It's one of those games where you kind of need a good connection or else you're going to be 2.5 miles behind everyone else. Even with our cross-world friend, the three of us had a snappy connection consistently. Rise has fantastic gameplay to boot. Even with it being as repetitive as it can get, it's never boring. Hell, even grinding for a specific monster part can be fun at times. I have so many fun memories with this game, and I can't wait for Sunbreak to come out this summer. While I had cleared Galaxy in my own time, my friends had a wonderful idea. What if we all raced the game? We're all busy human beings, but we set aside time to hop and call together and see who could beat the game the fastest. We played over multiple hour to hour-and-a-half sessions, seeing who could beat Bowser first. We also had a fun addition to our rule set, where when time was called for the session, if multiple people were in a mission for a star, the first one to get theirs would be able to add it to their total, and all others had to exit their mission. I ended up coming in second with a time of 4 hours, 10 minutes, and 35 seconds. Only a minute behind first place. While I struggled a bit in late game, I had some fun strategies. From making Good Egg Star 2 wicked fast, to accidentally making my 60th star a really easy one. I had a lot of fun. I know my group wants to do an Odyssey race next, which I just know will be chaotic and fun. Overall, this was a really fun way to experience one of, if not, my first childhood game. While I talked with my friends in the weeks before returning home, someone had brought up the Mario baseball game for the Wii. So as soon as I returned, I hooked up my Wii U and ran through the story mode once again. It was awesome! While most of the challenges were pretty easy, some weren't. I even got inspired to want to speedrun all characters someday. I actually did a run back in July, where I got a time of like 3 hours. But hey, practice is what makes perfect. Either way, I was happy to replay a game from my childhood and find a new love for Mario Baseball. Nintendo, please, give us a new entry for the Switch. When Strikers was announced, I was a bit skeptical at first. While Warriors games were fine by themselves, and Persona Warriors sounded like such a cool concept, I was worried that too many of the elements of base Persona would be watered down. I'm happy to say that this really feels like a sequel to Persona 5. While the gameplay does mirror Warriors games, it still has the elements you know and love from combat, from element weaknesses to all-out attacks. Every other aspect of the game oozes the same energy that was given to P5 and P5R. The characters are still who we've grown to love, and the original characters stand out as juggernauts. All the new characters in this game feel like they belong to the world of Persona. Not to mention that Zenkichi is the best warrior original character I've seen. The story still holds Persona 5's charm, and oh my god, the music. All of the new tracks are fantastic. They take Persona 5 style and evolve it with a freaking electric guitar. Even some original songs from the base game got their own version of this one. Shout out specifically to Keeper of Lust, which turned from an alright track in P5 to P5R into an absolute banger. I mean, listen to this shit. It didn't need to go this hard, but man did it turn out. For the spin-off Warriors game to still be reliant on the source material, and actually be good to boot, is something that I'm really glad happened with Persona, and it only elevates my expectations for any future Warriors games. I was lucky enough to not only grow up in the heyday of the Toys to Life gimmick, but I got to experience one of, if not the best one of that era, the first Skylanders. I got a weird itch to play it again, but when I did, I decided to challenge myself. I was also lucky enough to have most of the first generation of Skylanders, but I decided to limit myself to one of each element, so I had 8 total characters for the whole game. I chose Stealth Elf, Flame Slinger, Gilgrunt, Trigger Happy, Chop Chop, Lightning Rod, Prison Break, and, of course, Spyro himself. It was really fun, and a fun challenge as well. Especially that final fight. Because holy crap, why is that 4-headed Hydra monster so stupidly hard? Like, what kind of shit did Chaos get into between the last fight and this one? Either way, while I didn't really continue into the Skylanders franchise, the first game still holds a really good place in my heart. The original Spider-Man game for the PS4 is my favorite game from the system, and when this game was announced, I was beyond hyped. While not a sequel, Miles getting his own adventure was super cool to see. I'm also happy to say that this game basically matches its predecessor in terms of quality. It is a shorter adventure, but as this is Miles' first adventure as a Spider-Man, and for what occurs in the game, it makes sense. Miles' control style is similar enough to Peter, where the transition is seamless, but he has his own quirks and differences that set him apart from Parker, and in some ways actually surpass his mentor. Fun fact, with the GIS game being beat, I had officially completed every game I got for Christmas that year, which I thought was pretty cool. To the Moon, a game that I watched a playthrough of years ago, but never played myself. With a Steam sale going on at the time, I grabbed both this game and its sequel for pretty cheap. Playing the first game on my own again, and revisiting Johnny's story, was a welcome breath of fresh air. I can't talk too much about it, but it's a compelling story that really pulls at the heartstrings. If you have $5 and a system that can get the game, I highly recommend you pick it up and give it a try. Right on the heels of its predecessor, Finding Paradise is another game I'm not going to talk too much about. However, it is just as good as To the Moon was. Stories are elaborated on, and new characters are introduced to hit you square in the chest. But man, the lyrical song made for this game? I watched a friend play through this game very recently, and even knowing what was going on, the song still was super close to making me sob in call. If you are a fan of To the Moon, then Finding Paradise should be right up your alley as well. Alright, who ordered the tonal whiplash? Shortly after finally beating the DS game, I was made aware of the, well, Megamix. A game that compiled entries from every game in the series and also added its own. This was definitely a love letter to the series as a whole, which I appreciated even when I didn't recognize what minigame I was playing. From games that I absolutely fell in love with on my final run in the DS game, to new favorites in the series that I hadn't experienced at this point. Megamix is a loud and proud entry, and a great jumping point if you haven't experienced the glory of Rhythm Heaven. With the eShop sadly dying this year, this is one digital-only game I highly recommend you pick up. Keeping up with the tonal shift is Bowser's Inside Story, a classic from my childhood. I had unfortunately lost my copy of the game when I was young. Only after remembering that eBay was a thing did I finally order another copy and ended up playing it again. Hearing that battle intro exclamation for the first time in almost 10 years made me feel like I was a kid again. The battle style is unique and engaging, and both parties feel the same and yet different. The way the story pulls both the bros and Bowser onto the same side while keeping them at odds is always a sight to see. While I definitely played this game with rose-colored glasses, this is one of, if not the quintessential, Mario and Luigi experience. Sayonara Wild Hearts was a game I played last year? So why is it here? Well, I had grabbed the game again from my computer so I could potentially speedrun it. I know, I'm such a gamer. Even still, this game is fantastic. The music hits hard, the levels are fun, and heck, the ending still makes me emotional to this day. If you've experienced that big heartbreak in your life, do yourself a favor, grab this game during the next sale and give it a shot. It will not disappoint you. Another game that I watched on YouTube years ago, but never played myself. I only ever saw 2 endings papers, please, but I wanted to challenge myself and get what's basically called the loyalty ending, aka ending 20. It was super fun, even though all you unlock for it is in endless mode. It's a classic indie title that's a fun experience to work through no matter what ending you get. Just remember to follow the rules, and glory to our Statska. This game was one I always wanted to try. The concept of controlling a game with just your eyes was really interesting, and it actually performs really well. Although my eyes were definitely dry by the end of the game from not blinking, the story was incredible. I'm not going to talk about it much again due to the game being super story-based, but it was a great journey to go on. Another cult classic from before I existed. A Link to the Past is a game I've had a weird history with. I played its successor, A Link Between Worlds, when I was younger, and that game was actually the first Zelda game I beat. But my first experience with this game was actually in a combo randomizer with Super Metroid. After a little bit of time, I felt like it was only right to actually beat the base. It was fun! Being able to see where core mechanics and story staples were born in the series made me understand why this game is so heavily praised, along with others like Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild. It's definitely weird not have the game be obvious in where you have to go, but it still makes for an experience you can tackle however you want. But maybe I feel that way because I learned about this game really from its randomizer. The randomizer is something that I've completed many a run of, both from my own experience and when I race against friends. The randomizer tests your knowledge of the world of Hyrule, and your understanding of the game to know where you have to go as quickly as you can. The randomizer definitely paints my view of Link to the Past as one of great joy, with hype moments and just random bullshit. You can find the Moon Pearl in the Sanctuary, Sarasla can have a bow, the Catfish can have Titan's Mitt, and many other wacky item layouts can create either a breezy seed where you're looking for just that one single thing, or you're desperately attempting different checks just hoping it's something useful. Why is it 20 rupees again?! Well, hello, Justice for All. Finally giving in to my authoritarian desires, Justice for All was such a weird game for me. More so, I loved it more than I expected. I've always seen such decisive opinions on this game, especially when the cases are considered. Some claim that Case 3 is one of the worst of the series, and others claim it's excellent. I won't deny, Justice for All does have some ups and downs. I'm looking straight at you, Mo the fucking clown. No, your jokes aren't funny. But overall, I really enjoyed this game. While it's the shortest of the trilogy, the majority of the cases were super fun. Even the ones I didn't grow a fondness for still had their highlights. If anything, it made me eager to jump to the last game of the trilogy. First, I had to settle something. Boy, this game! After months of pestering and polite suggestions from my friends way deep in the Yakuza cult, I finally continued my journey in this world. And hot damn, what a game! This story is phenomenal. Surprisingly, Kiwami joins the list of games to really hit me. This game touched me on a really personal level, which caught me completely off guard. And while I don't think it beats out Zero in terms of overall story, this finale is most definitely up to snuff with its prequel. It was awesome to see beloved characters return, like Kiryu, Reina, Nishiki, and Majima, as well as brand new characters. Some were given a bigger story presence, like Kazuma, and others were completely new to the series, like Date and Haruka. This game also made me appreciate Yakuza 0 even more. Kiwami is a remake of the first game, but 0 was made before Kiwami. And yet, Yakuza 0 still ties into its successor super well. Obviously, this game isn't perfect. It's one of those, you're super powered at the start only to lose it all games. And the way to get one of your fighting styles back is a side mode called Majima Everywhere. I personally love this side mode, as Majima was a favorite character of mine from 0. Seeing him go from serious Yakuza man to a fucking crackhead with a baseball bat and a knife was entertaining to say the least. Although, the mode was a grind and annoying at times, especially when it was exhausted of its use and Majima is just prowling the streets going Kiryu-chan at every turn. But everything that happened in this game got me thinking, what the heck goes on in Kiwami 2? Okay, if we're being really technical here, I didn't play this game. I don't own it, nor did I borrow it. But three of my friends and I got together, and while one friend played it and streamed it to us on Discord, we all sat together in VC and experienced the story. It was a super fun mystery as we all threw our ideas at a wall, hoping one would stick. It scratched that itch I had to exercise my brain in this way, as Ace Attorney was on hold until I completed another PS4 game. And it was a super fun bonding experience with my friends, especially when one of us would piece something together and it turned out to be right. Although there were times when someone would just soul read a name out of the ether and it worked. I'm still mad about Nathan Peters, Steve. Either way, it was a fun journey to go on, even though I swear those spider monsters are in my dreams sometimes. Astral Chain was one of my favorite games to come out in 2019. The music, the characters, and the story are all just amazing. While the gameplay is one of those that takes a bit to learn, it's still quite fun. 2 years later, and I was due to replay it. I remember this game being kind of difficult, even if the difficulty was set just easy or normal. Maybe it's due to me having played this game before, but I found this go-around not only being easier for me, but a lot more enjoyable. Astral Chain definitely benefited from the second playthrough for me, and it cemented itself as one of my favorite Switch games. If you're a fan of anime police crime drama with gameplay that's easy to learn and difficult to master, I highly recommend this title. Grab it on sale. It's a fun ride. While I technically completed Hades last year, I still had some unfinished business down in the underworld, specifically the epilogue to Zagreus' story. Jumping back into the game at the difficulties I was playing at a few months ago was a little daunting, but it wasn't hard to get back into the rhythm of hacking and slashing my way through the legions of undead. With the epilogue now complete, this game does everything so well. Even while I was playing, I saw new dialogue that really resonated with me. Anything that was said about this game back in 2020 is still true today. It's a phenomenal piece of work, and I'm glad I went back to it. This game was definitely something I picked up on a whim. I had seen a playthrough of the first game, and I'd heard stuff about the second, but I hadn't touched the series until now. And I picked a good one to jump in at. The thing that definitely captured me about Luigi's Mansion 3 most was the characterization. Luigi is such a lovable coward that you can't help but root for the guy, and all the supporting cast are full of emotion. The toads, the ghosts, hell, I'm willing to bet Mario is more colorful in this game than some of his titles. Just the entire cast oozes color and character, and I find that really refreshing. The environments are no such either, as so much is crammed into this one mansion. While playing, I was thinking that this isn't a regular mansion as it's advertised, but is something more akin to Mordenkainen. Overall, a fantastic game with a lot of charm that I highly recommend if you've somehow ran out of Switch games to play. Katamari. Always knew about this game, but never really understood what exactly it was about. I could recognize the only rolling star as easily as the next guy, but I was in the majority of people who had never touched this game before. Well, thanks to Switch sales, the remaster of the first game came cheap, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely one of those games you can just turn your brain off and play, which was very refreshing considering anyone else I was playing at the time. Just rolling up the world with the blessings of the soundtrack guiding your way. Just don't look too hard at it once you start rolling up people, or large animals, or airplanes. You'll be fine. About 3/4 into the year, we accidentally introduced a new concept into our game clearing. Secret games. Basically, we'd play the game without telling anyone what we were playing, and when we finished it, we'd reveal what we played. When Sora was announced for Smash, I decided to redouble my efforts into a different game, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. That didn't go so well, so I ended up watching a story summary on YouTube and I jumped straight into Kingdom Hearts 2. And I wasn't disappointed by my decision. The game actually taking a turn for the positive was super refreshing, not to mention that the gameplay was fantastic. Part of the fun of playing this game was keeping that I was playing it hidden from my friends. Revealing the identity was absolutely hilarious, especially for one friend who wasn't present during that moment and proceeded to astral project into another plane. Either way, Kingdom Hearts 2 rocketed the rest of the series into my interest, so hopefully I'll find the time and will to see everything to its conclusion. As someone who didn't really become a Metroid fan until a few years ago, with Metroid Fusion and Super, when Dread was announced, I was so excited. 2D Metroid's kind of all I know, so having a brand new game to play was super exciting. Metroid Dread is snappier than any of its predecessors. Moving Samus around just feels natural and fast, unlike any of the previous titles. It was partly thanks to these mechanics I ended up 100%ing the game. Dread is also a great subtitle for this game, as the Emmys are fucking terrifying. They've jump scared me multiple times and killed me more than I'd like to admit. The counter is so hard to pull off. The power progression in the game felt really nice. As well, you felt competent for where you were. The next second can make you feel extremely unprepared. It's a great challenge for Metroid fans, both old and new, and a fantastic Switch title. Shadow of the Colossus was a game I have heard so much about over the years. It's another one of those titles that is seemingly beloved by everyone who's played it, so there was definitely some pressure on me as I started up the game. There are a few things about it that I really like. The atmosphere of this game is downright incredible. The views, the places you explore, it's all so breathtaking. The colossi that wander the world are so varied. Some are absolutely enormous, while others may be a head taller than you. And while some mill about the arena as you climb around them, others are ready to fuck you up. I want to shout out the 16th Colossus in particular, as that fight is oozing in atmosphere, threat, and music. When I was playing through it, I didn't really enjoy the depressing, bleak tone of the game. But looking back, I can appreciate what the game was going for. You really shouldn't be enjoying this. You're working for a selfish cause, and are being guided by the discounts on Nova. But overall, Shadow of the Colossus is one thing for me. An experience. Kiwami 2 had a big task ahead of itself. The one job it had was to convince me to play the next 3 games in the series, as I had my eye on the remastered collection. It also had a follow-up on Kiwami, which absolutely destroyed me emotionally. It had super big shoes to fill, and it did so in spades. Kiwami 2 brings characters in to fill the shoes of those that leave, and introduces brand new characters to spice up the plot. The twists in this game take a little bit to occur, which left me fearing that for once, the finale was gonna fall short of the Yakuza standard, but hey, bombs are kinda neat. While we still have the mainstay of Kiryu, he's thrown for several loops as he navigates Kamurocho for a 3rd time. The gameplay, in terms of fighting, is different from Zero and Kiwami, and while I miss the styles of those games, Kiwami 2's combat isn't a slouch either. The game also runs in the Dragon engine, which means that I got to see stuff like this. It was pretty great. Majima gets more competition for Best Boy, but for those Zero fans out there, he also gets his own chapter made specifically for Kiwami 2, the Majima Saga. If you chose to continue with the series from Zero and Kiwami, this is a game that will not let you down. Hades was such a banger. Both Bastion and Transistor rocketed into my vision of, hey, these games will probably be good if I tried them. After asking for some advice, I grabbed both titles on sale for less than $1. Bastion was up first, and wow, I didn't want this game to end. Every time it felt like it was wrapping up, I found myself hoping it didn't. When the story finally earned its close, it felt well earned and just good. I totally see myself diving into a new Game Plus playthrough of this one in the future. With a second Supergiant banger done and shelved for replayability in the future, I was pretty hyped for Transistor. But first... I really liked Undertale, but due to me being a somewhat angsty teen who never liked popular things unless it was cool with their friends, I never played Deltarune back in 2018. With the release of Chapter 2, I decided to remedy that mistake. I then discovered I had been missing out. Again. Both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are quality adventures from Toby Fox. The characters, the music, the locations, the twists. It was a satisfying experience from beginning to end. While the game as a whole isn't too difficult, both super bosses kicked me straight in the teeth. The first more so than the second one. Edgy 2018 me can't believe I'm saying this, but I will quietly wait in anticipation for the next chapters of this tale. Or is it a rune now? The final game of the year, and the final game of the trilogy. Trials and Tribulations had a lot to live up to. Like Justice for All, I had heard about this game, except I had heard nothing but positive remarks. But for once, the game wholly lived up to them. All of the cases in this game have something going for them. The witnesses are crazy, the stakes get ramped up, and oh boy, that final case. I was already sold on the rest of the series before I played the third title, but Trials and Tribulations wraps up Phoenix's story in such a satisfying way. I don't know if I have a favorite in terms of the main trilogy, but this game holds its weight and then some. And that's everything. 2021 in general was an insane year for me, but I'm proud I got to knock out some amazing games. At the end of this year, I'm currently about halfway through Final Fantasy 15, 3/4 of the way done with Paper Mario, and I'm pretty close to finishing a playthrough of Fire Emblem Awakening. After these games are done, I'm jumping into Transistor, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, and Ace Attorney Apollo Justice. Because of Christmas, I have a lot more games on my backlog to complete within this next year. They might even span into the next 2 years. And with many games on the horizon that we both know and have no clue about, I'm excited to see where gaming goes in 2022 and beyond. Special thanks to my friends for inspiring both this crazy idea of a video and unintentionally keeping a backlog of games I've played. And thank you for watching.